Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, April 3rd, 2026. So we start off with Stephanie, Alex, and Kayla. So Stephanie is getting released today, and Alex is just packing up her things, and he knows she must be glad to just, be coming out of the hospital, getting back to normalcy or some sort of normalcy. So Kayla comes in to just check her, and she was advising her to stay a little longer, but Stephanie wants to get out of that hellhole. And Kayla said, okay, well, I'll visit you a couple of times, swing around. And of course, she doesn't really want that because Steve was there with them, basically tree wooding it, and she doesn't want that again with her mom. And her mom is saying, all right, then I can just drop off dinner, and they agreed to that. Now, Stephanie is definitely still shaken up by what has happened to her, what has transpired. And, Alex is ready to take her home, but she said she wanted to make a stop at the police station. She wanted to confront Owen because, she wants to take back her life somehow. Now, Jeremy does go to the station to give his statement with Jada present, and Steve comes over. Steve is finally being man enough to just apologize to Jeremy for being wrong, for not really, being objective about this thing. He using his emotions, which he normally doesn't do. Using his emotions or his past judgments of Jeremy and not really thinking about, other possible suspects, other troublesome exes of Stephanie's past. And, he just was focused on Jeremy. Everybody owed him a huge apology, and he apologized to him. And Jeremy understood because, he took the humble way out. If I were him, I wouldn't, because the way how Steve was going at Jeremy was just terrible. But he extended grace towards Steve, and he said to Steve, I understand, given my past history, Stephanie, that you would be thinking about me directly being the cause of the kidnapping, right? So he accepted the apology, and he also thanked Jada, the police force, for really coming through and rescuing both of them, because at the end of the day, his life was also in danger, and because of them, they were both rescued. So he also thanked him as well. Now, Jada, once Jeremy left, Jada also, sat down with Steve, and she talked about how long the days have been and how it has definitely been stressful all around, especially with Stephanie's kidnapping, how it affected Steve and Kayla. And, she can't really complain given what they've been through. And he said, of course you can, you're there worried about your friends being missing, as well as just running the whole police force. Like, I can understand how draining it must be. Now, she asked about Stephanie, how she's doing, and he said, she says she's great, but I just don't believe she's okay. I believe she's still struggling. She's not herself as yet. Now, early at the hospital, Kayla came in to check in on Sean. He's pushing himself because he just doesn't want to be dependent on nobody. He wants to get out there and recover as fast, but Kayla warned him not to just, overdo himself, considering he got that kind of injury. Now, when she was talking to him, she mentioned the whole thing about him moving in with Jada, and that's when Belle come in, and it's like real awkward. So Belle's like, what's going on here? So, she tells her briefly what's, going on with Sean, that he's ready to get discharged and all that. So she leaves for them to talk. And Belle is like, did I just overhear correctly that you're moving in with Jada? And he said, she said, I thought we were family. So he said, we'll always be family and, share a child together, as you say. But I just don't think it would be comfortable for you and I to be moving in. It just wouldn't work out. And she gets it. She didn't really think about it that way, but she understands. Now, at some point, Jada comes over, and he knows that, they have to talk about this suspension because of him withholding information about what really happened on that night with him, JJ, and Klaus. So Jada said that she put a warning in his file, and she's not suspending him, and she's not rescinding the offer for him to move in. She's just saying that you got to earn back my trust. So he said that he'll work on that, and he appreciates the offer. But I'm just saying, I don't know. I think Jada was very lenient on him, considering their past relationship or their past fling. And I just know this might go somewhere because of their chemistry. And, them living in close proximity is fireworks is about to happen with these two. I'm just saying. So, Leo, honestly, this was just insufferable to me today because he just was going on and on and on about his, like, how Leo gets talking about himself, self-pity, and it's just, I know he's blaming it on this concussion and he is more, emotional, whatever. I just feel like that's been his personality from the get-go, and it's just being more and more insufferable these days. It was just hard to watch this scene with him and Kayla. Kayla was just checking in on him, telling him no screen time, and he's going on and on about his love life and how he made some mistakes and how he's torn between the two, the same old storyline, the same old side storyline that honestly, we need to wrap this up. And he's talking about how he won't see them anymore, how he won't have anybody to spend a future with, blah, 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 because of his own decision. And Kayla is just trying to pep talk with him and talk about how amazing he is and how he is, gonna find love one day, and he's made a lot of challenge, he's overcome a lot of challenges. He is gonna be better for it, blah blah blah. At some point she leaves and Belle comes over, and he's also thanking Belle about not pressing charges against him for aiding and abetting Dimitri. She said it's out of her jurisdiction, so she can't really do nothing. And he was just saying he just really wanted to prove Dimitri's innocence, and he's just sorry he couldn't have done that. And she said, he's out of the state, so she can't really prosecute him, but he also talked about the same old thing with him losing 2 men of his life and blah, blah, blah. And she was just motivating him. Otherwise, I'm just saying it was just ridiculous. It was just annoying. At some point, he does go into his room and start journaling about, his decisions and how he, made the mistake of losing Harvey, and talks about how Dimitri made him feel, and that even though they bring out some horrible qualities, there's also great qualities, and they understand each other better than him and Harvey's relationship. Now, at some point, Dimitri comes in, and I don't know if this is a figment of his imagination or his concussion, or really Dimitri is back in town. We will see what happened in a week. Now, against advice from Jada, Steve, Alex, Stephanie goes into the interrogation room with Owen and lock the door, close the blinds. Steve is just, he is concerned about what the guy might do to her in there. And Jada reminds him that we're here if anything should pop off. And he's just really antsy about it. Now, Owen is just in his deluded mind thinking about, she come back to me and I'm so glad, and the love of my life, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I'm not the love of your life. I've never been in love with you. You don't know what love means. That was not love. And what my parents have is love. What me and Alex have is love. What you think is love is not it. Now, he said that, he had to do what he had to do because she was not cooperating, and she's just saying how he's a sadistic, controlling SOB, and she hates him. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, she hated him, she hated him, she hated him. And I think he was saying something about how the kiss felt magical, and she slapped him. And then she was saying, I hate him, and, Jada and the rest of the gang had to come in and, take Owen away, and Alex was consoling Stephanie, and Steve was about to attack Owen as well. And she comes home with Alex and she says how sorry she is about what happened there, and he understands that she had to just confront him, and he's saying don't feel sorry about that. Now, he wants to move on and move forward with their life. They didn't even get the chance to really start their lives as newlyweds, and he's ready for that. And she says, yeah, she agrees on that. But I'm just saying, Stephanie, the way Stephanie was behaving, she needs therapy, she needs help. Marlena needs to come in clutch, because the way she was going on, Owen is not going to be out of her head. And, I don't know what this is going to be for the later episodes. I didn't even like seeing her screaming faces. Honestly, it was just unbearable to watch. Steve comes back over to the hospital. He runs into Kayla and, he invites her out to lunch. So they talk about Stephanie's discharge, and he informs her that Stephanie is really not okay. She went to the police station to confront Owen, which I think is a bad idea, but she's still defiant in it. She went in, and the way how she was looking towards him and after is just concerning, and she definitely needs some help. Like, I don't think she's okay with everything, and of course they're now both worried. So also there was an interaction with JJ and Julie. So Julie was just saying that she came from seeing Sean, and Sean told her everything that happened between them on that day of the incident. So he was saying, did he tell you how I was to be blamed for his accident? And Julie doesn't want to get into that. Julie wants to just see how he's doing, how he's handling it, because she remembers how he took it the first time with Theo shooting, how he wanted to off himself. And he said, look, if you're thinking I'm going to harm myself, no, but I am still seeing my therapist and still got the support. And Julie reminds him that he's not alone, that they're here, they love him, they support him, and not to beat himself up, not to judge. They're not judging him. So he said, nobody can really judge me like myself right now. So he's going through what Sean went through when he shot his father years ago. Now Jeremy comes in, and Julie's happy to see him, and Julie tells the gentleman that she's gonna cook this comforting dinner for the both of them. Now Jeremy sits down with JJ, and he tells him that he just came from doing a statement, and he's still angry, understandably, at how people treated him like he was this town pariah. I mean, yes, he's made some mistakes towards Stephanie, and he's trying to right his wrong, rectify his life and everything. And then JJ is saying, he was one of them, and he's sorry for that. But, Jeremy understands that it's his job, and he's not blaming JJ. It's the other people that just were wrong about him from the get-go. But he said that he's staying in town just to prove people wrong, and that initially he wanted to run because of the accusation, but he's going to stay around, see what happens. He talks about his reaction with Stephanie while they were captive, and it brought them close together. He hasn't been close to Stephanie in such a while, but it brought up old feelings, like they're not all completely suppressed. And JJ said, do you really see something with her? But he said, no, she's married. Like, it's nothing that I can really do there. I just always wanted to be happy and safe, but I don't know. I think they were trauma bonding, but I don't know. I sense chemistry outside of that trauma bonding between the two of them, and it may be trouble in paradise for Alex and Stephanie. And it's going to be trouble in paradise because we know Joy's coming back this April. So let's see what happens. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. Comment below your thoughts on today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful Easter weekend.